Welcome to Ready Set RC, and today we are doing the final thoughts review of the Team Corally Kronos V2. This is a long-awaited video for us guys. We've had this RC for quite some time, and it's finally time to actually go through what we think of the Team Corally Kronos 2. For you guys who are new to the channel, there are about 6 other videos that we have done solely on the Kronos V2 up until this point. So if you're looking for size comparisons, angles of the truck, a kind of in depth as to what we've done to the truck to this point, go back and watch those videos. I'll list the playlist to those videos in the description below. Done an unboxing video, a comparisons video to the Creighton and the Losi 8T. We've done an on-road and off-road rip video during the winter of 2021. We've done our first bash video, which was done off of our first set of ramp. And we've done a fix video where we show the links that we've decided to use on the Kronos V2 from this point on. And then the final bash video where we take it off of the T-Bone Racing ramp and really put this thing through its paces. So quite a bit of material we have done up until this point, and today it is finally time to go through the Kronos V2 and discuss what we actually think of this truck. So once again, for you guys who are new to the channel, welcome. Just kind of talk through what the format is for our final thoughts. We go through the electronics where we speak about the controller, the ESC, the motor, the servo, and the receiver. Then we touch on the drivetrain and how the drivetrain performed, if there was any issues that we experienced through the drivetrain of this truck, the handling and suspension of how it's set up out of the box so you guys know what to expect when you get the Kronos V2, durability as what we've gone through for the 5 running videos of this truck, workability, and we can touch on that quite a bit on this truck since we've done a ton of work up until this point. Support, as we speak of today, based on our experiences with support for the Kronos V2 from Team Corally, and then the opinionated parts of the discussion. Is it worth it? And would I buy it again? Controller that you get with the Team Corally Kronos V2. I thought this controller was pretty good, guys. It does the basics of what you're looking for. Throttle command is very responsive. It is a little light, but there's no issues in using this for this truck. You have a nice foam wheel, and as you guys can see, it's very easy to use in the hands. It has a nice rubberized grip, which feels excellent in the hand. It's not too big, it's not too small, it just feels good. It's nice, it's a very good RTR controller, guys. As for the receiver, we had no issues with the receiver cutting out. Very responsive in the areas that we ran it. This thing had no problem with distance or anything whatsoever when we were running the Kronos V2. Regard to the ESC, the Torox 185, and the Curon 825 setup in this truck. Tons of power, guys. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's almost no need with the Team Corally motor and ESC setup to ever run this on 6S. It is by far one of the best RTR motor and ESC setups in regards to power that I've ever seen. You guys who have followed me for quite some time, you know I have quite a few RCs, and for me to say that, that's tremendous. I know I own 3 Team Corally vehicles, and they all have that kind of power coming out of the box. 4S is more than enough for these trucks. 6S is just bananas, but I really do like the ESC and the motor in this truck. The only thing I would say about the motor, guys, put a heat sink and a fan on it. I do notice that over the summer months, it does run a little bit warmer. And based on that, I would say if you're gonna run this on 6S or run this on the high traction surfaces, go ahead and throw a fan and a heat sink on that motor. As for the servo, I don't know, I'm indifferent. It is a metal gear servo that comes with this truck, but my issues with it is the turn radius just downright is poor. It's a very poor performance for the turn radius. And I don't know what that is. I did crank down the servo saver on this, and still the turn radius is not so good. I've done things where I thought it would improve it to a reasonable level, but it has not. I've increased the voltage to the servo. As I said, I've cranked down the servo saver, and nothing has really shown me where it is even remotely adequate for the way that I like to drive my trucks. It's just, the radius just outright sucks, guys. There's no other way to put it. But as for the speed of the servo, I thought it was adequate. I thought it was pretty good. I'm just questioning the radius, and that may be more dealing with the suspension and how it is in the front rather than it is the actual servo itself. Drivetrain, I've had no issues with bent drive shafts in the front, bent drive shafts in the rear, center drive shaft bent, nothing whatsoever. I know that there is a considerable amount of flex when it comes to the chassis, but I didn't experience that. The differentials on the front, the center, and the rear held up perfectly, guys. If anything, I would probably suggest thickening up the center a little bit. Maybe that will help a little bit in regards to the power that comes down on this. And at that point, maybe you'll be able to run it on 6S. I thought the way that it's set up, the drivetrain has held up well for me. Handling and suspension. Now, we touched on this a little bit in regards to the turn radius for the front, but I will say in regards to the shocks, the rear, as you guys can see, could do with some stiffer oil, maybe even stiffer springs going on in the rear. As for the front, I thought that was dampened properly. I didn't have an issue with it. A couple turns down on the shocks, you know, it stiffened up just the way for my liking and how I like to drive, but I thought the rear definitely could use combination, maybe a combination of thicker oil with some stiffer springs, but I thought the rear needs a little bit of attention on this. As for how it drives and the plushness and how it operates, I thought it performed well, guys. In regards to the handling and the suspension outside of that, thought it performed well. Now, the first couple of videos, you guys can go back and check. There were just rips and no issues whatsoever. When I started taking this up for some jumps, it did bottom out quite a bit, and you guys can see the truck does bottom out, which is what you want. You want that load not being put onto the shocks themselves. So it does, the shocks are set up the way that they need to be. I just feel the rear could be a lot more stiffer. Durability. And this is probably where we are going to sit for some time. In regards to the body is held up. Now, I have one crack going on over here. No cracks on the rear, no stresses. Where the body mounts go, I have one tether that actually pulled through, and these are thin. They're extremely thin. So even if you pull it by here, what's going to tend to happen is the body pins will seat into the body mounts a little bit tight. You may need to ream them out a little bit, but in pulling that off is when I definitely snagged this, this body tether. Outside of that, the rest of the three, they held up well. The body pins do get abused. And this right here, this abrasion that you see here, I actually buffed this out. Got this down to where it's at least respectable at this point. But this was mainly from when I was doing the on-road runs. It was scraping onto the asphalt and really tore up the body, and I got it back to looking to this state. But it held up. It held up. For a basher body, I don't think you're gonna go too wrong with this. At no point do I see, you can see in the front, at no point do you see the shocks or anything protruding out the front of it. So the body held up pretty well. For the rest of the truck, let's talk that one through. So one of the first brakes that I had in reference to the Kronos V2 was the rear links. And the rear links on this are made of a very pliable plastic when it comes to the bending of it. And I showed this on the fix video, guys, but for some reason, the actual ends are brittle. They're just brittle. And it wasn't that this car was being driven on a very cold day or a very hot day or anything like that where the plastics would give or stretch or break or brittleness. It's just the compound of this plastic. And from what I saw, it's you know, these links are no good. They're just no good, guys. And what I did, and please do go back, I'm not gonna go into it in detail on this video, but go back to on my fix video, but I put in the Losi 8T's links on the rear. no issues. This truck took a pounding, took some awkward landings, and no issues with the rear. Where I did get an issue was the front end. So the pivot balls popped out on the car. At that point, I already know it's compromised. So what I started to do, and that was done on the last run of this truck, and what I started to do then was starting to go ahead and added some things to see if the strengthening of this vehicle will be improved by those changes. One of the things that I've done on this truck right now, and I'm definitely going to put it through its paces in the next set of runs after I've completed everything on here, is I changed over to the Armor Crate and pivot balls on this truck. And that was based on BigPoppaPaul and what he was saying. Now, I did measure the pivot balls from the stock ones that come on the Kronos V2 to the ones on the Armor Crate, and they're the same size. So it's weird. I know I've seen his videos. He hasn't had an issue, but they're the same size. If not, the Armor ones are slightly smaller from what I did a measurement on, and I used my digital caliper to measure it. So they're slightly smaller, not much, but I did notice they are smaller, and we're gonna see how they hold up. I'm gonna take you through this truck, but I've now done some setups on this truck where the bracing on this is identical to what you would see on the XTR. So I'm hoping that will alleviate some of the issues that I'm seeing with this truck in regards to the flexing and everything moving that's creating some of these issues of pivot balls popping out, links just snapping. I just want to see if it's going to hold up based on those changes that I have done. Out of the box, guys, in regards to the durability of the Kronos V2, it's challenging. If you don't land this truck on all fours every time, and that can almost go for any truck at this point, you're going to break this one. So where some other trucks will take the bad landing, flex, and then kind of stand up and go, you do a bad landing with this truck, one bad landing, maybe two, this truck is done. It is going to break on you. And what I noticed from every video that I've seen, plus the times that I've gone through it, if you land squarely on the side of the tire in the front, those pivot balls are going to pop. Every landing I have seen on every video, plus my videos, you land on the wheel on the side, the pivot ball is going to pop. So just to explain that to you, you land like this, that pivot ball is going to pop. You land like this, that pivot ball is going to pop. Any landing remotely close to landing on the side of the tire, that pivot ball is going to pop. Now I want to see how BigPoppaPaul's setup works, see if that works for me. It's been working amazing for him. I've seen the videos, and definitely go to his channel and check him out if you haven't seen his channel yet. But every video that I have seen, it's been one of those kind of landings that pops out the pivot balls. Now I want to see how his holds up, but I'm looking forward to trying it out for myself. We also had a landing where the wing pulled right through the screws, but that's an easy fix. Now, I know some issues, I know some people were saying in regards to these tires for this truck, they either were ballooning to the point where they were ripping apart. For me, I haven't had that issue. I had no issues with the tires blowing off, but the one reason why, I drilled holes in these tires for the first run. They don't balloon on me as much. They hold up pretty well. I sealed the inner holes. They do very well for me. So I haven't had an issue. They're very grippy though, guys. I will say that the tires on this, they're extremely grippy, but they did not blow off the wheel. They performed well, and I'm going to keep running them on this truck. Workability. And let's get into this, guys, because I thought workability on this truck was fairly easy. I didn't see a problem with doing the work on this, but I will say this, and Team Corally has to get better with this part of it. If you think the parts for the XTR to the Kronos V2 are going to be one-to-one like, they're not. They're absolutely not. And there's nothing in Team Corally's directions or anything that state that they are. You're going to, I experienced this when I was putting the parts on, thinking the Kronos V2 was going to be a one-to-one mount. When it comes to it, it is not. I had a problem with the front bracing, working with the RTRs. I'm working with the RTRs setup, and it doesn't. You have to buy additional XTR parts. And I will touch more on this as I get to the would I buy this again. But trying to convert this or making this more of an XTR is a hell of a lot of work, guys. It's a lot of work. And the standard strengthening parts that they give you available to the Kronos V2, I don't think it goes far enough. I think the XTR goes exactly where it needs to go when it comes to the strengthening on this truck. And that touches back onto support. I had reached out to Corally to kind of work with them and just offer my opinions on the truck. Not to get them to provide me parts or support me or anything like that. I just wanted to let them know that folks in the community, including myself, are seeing some straight up concerns in regards to the durability of some of the plastics on this truck. And it took them maybe 3 times for me to reach out to them, a little bit over a month for them to get back to me. Now, I don't know if that's a States thing or what, but it's email. Email's global, guys. You can reach out to me anywhere. I reached out to them via email. I reached out to them on their site, and I got 0 response until I had to reach out to them 3 times. It took me 3 times to get a response. At that point, they did tell me that they are working on the truck. They are aware of what's going on, and they welcomed me reaching out to them and giving them my opinion. Now, I do appreciate that. They are fairly new in the bashing game, but they're not new when it comes to RCs. And when it comes to customer support and reaching out to people, it doesn't take much to just respond to an email and just say, hey, acknowledge your email. We'll hit you back by X time. Trust me, it doesn't take much to do that. And I have to say, between the Gen 1 to the Gen 2, there are leaps and bounds of the changes that they have done to improve this vehicle. Now I'm looking for that to happen to the Gen 3. I'm looking for them to make the leaps and bounds to the Gen 3 and make those changes that they did on the XTR to the Gen 3 of the Kronos V2. Because I think this is going to be a very good truck by the time they get there. Now keep this in mind, guys. This is only Gen 2 of their truck, and they have done a lot of work to get it to this point. Yes, I am the guinea pig. Yes, everybody who's been buying the V2s, the V1s, have been the guinea pigs. But I'm willing to see where they take the Gen 3. And that's going to lead us into, is it worth it? Now, this truck, by the time I got it, it was a Christmas gift from my wife. You get probably one of the better controllers out there. You get a truck that looks the part. A metal center diff case, the adjustments that you have in the front, pillow balls in the front, the thickness that you get of the suspension arms on this, the metal drive shafts, the thickness of the aluminums on this, you are getting a pretty premium vehicle in looks. The question then comes down to the durability of this vehicle. And that's where I start to wonder, are you really getting what you're looking for when it comes to this? $529 for the known durability issues that you're going to have with this truck. Is it worth it? And if I was not a YouTube channel doing these reviews for you guys to see what this vehicle is all about, I probably would have watched the other guys out there, seen their issues, and walked away from this truck. And this is going to lead me right into, would I buy it again? And I gotta say, guys, I'm gonna be very straightforward with this. I wouldn't buy the V2 again. It's just not what I expect at this time for a monster truggy. You want it to bash. You're not gonna race around with this truck. If you're gonna race, you're gonna buy one of their other vehicles, or you're gonna buy something on their racer line. You're not gonna buy this truck to race. And I think the turn radius that you get on this, you don't want to use this for racing anyway, guys. You definitely don't want to use that for racing. And what you need to get this truck to be durable, you're better off just buying the XTR. It's a roller. You can put the Team Corally electronics in there. You can get the electronics from Jenny's RC and tinker with the front end. I mean, I've seen guys putting Creighton front ends in here. I've seen the BigPoppaPaul and changing the pivot balls on the front. If you're gonna do all that, you're better off getting the XTR, doing the work, and replacing it. But for me, the V2 is not a good buy, guys. There's just way too many durability issues, and this is a basher that this truck is just running into. I've discussed them before, but I think where it got to the point for me where I said, you know what, not the truck for me. I am good. As I said, I'm not quitting on this. This truck will still be on the channel. I still will be going through my fixes and seeing how it goes, and I will be cataloging that and putting that up on YouTube for you guys to see, and Instagram. But when it got to the part where I was trying to put the XTR parts on this truck and saw they're not one for one, that you got to pretty much tear this truck all the way down to get an XTR on there. And at that point, you're better off buying an XTR. I said, I'm done. That's where I was like, you know what? There's just so much you got to do this. There's so much you need to do to this to get it to that point. And I normally don't play the manufacturer game thing, but I'm going to say this. If I was going out to go get the armor strengthening parts for a regular armor Creighton, so in other words, if I was to get EXB parts to put on my armor Creighton V5, I don't have to do half the things that I did to this truck to get those parts to fit. It's 1-to-1. Why, when I need to put the front end bracing from the XTR on this truck, do I need to buy the shock tower to do that? Otherwise, I have to go back and use some of the plastics that I'm trying to get out of this truck back on it to work. That's the part where I'm just like, you know what? I'm done. Not the truck for me. And you guys have to weigh that for yourselves. But for me, as I said, this is the opinionated part of the discussion. I think when you start dipping further into my pocket, for me to go ahead and strengthen this truck, I have to basically buy the XTR. That's when I'm just like, I'm done. But I will tell you guys, if you really want the Kronos, buy the XTR. Don't even look at the V2, because the V2 is going to frustrate you with the amount of work it's going to need to get this thing to not break every time you have a bad crash. There's a lot of vehicles I own, take a bad landing, get back up like a champ and keep going. Won't take the bad landing. Will not take it. But that's it, guys. We're gonna leave it here. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram for our latest posts to the channel. This is Ready Set RC, signing out. Thanks again, guys.